When it comes to culture either side of the Atlantic, no one does it better. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you USUK's What's the Difference podcast with Alex Whiteley and Tom Bruno. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to USUK's What's the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Alex Whiteley.
And I'm Tom Bruno.
Yes. We're joining you today. We were supposed to have the great and powerful Eric Pfluger on our show today, but he had he suffered a terrible loss in his family. And we wanted to, before we get into this, say we love you, Eric. And we'll get you on the show again. You will hear from Eric Pfluger again, the world famous artist Eric Pfluger. And on the flip side, thank you so much to our guest, Ivy Slater, for joining us at such short notice. I'm really looking forward to talking to you.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Thanks for having me, Tom. Glad I could pitch in. And again, my heartfelt thoughts and to Eric and his family.
Yeah, it was a sad thing. He was the day before we were supposed to record, and sadly his dad passed away. But Eric is well loved by our USUK fan group. He is joining. We are putting a show together soon. So guys, keep your ears to the ground. First of all, how are things stateside for you, Tom? Good.
Good, man. You know, I'm a little tired. I started the night shift this week. In fact, it was crazy because I messaged you and I was like, all right, so I'm going to be there. Don't worry. I have my alarm set. Everything's good. But like, I'm not going to respond until at least like 1:30. So I hop on this morning and all of a sudden I see like, hey man, you okay? We doing this? I was like, yeah. I'm totally there, Alex. I'm there already, man. But what do you mean you're not here? And he's like, dude, you're still sleeping. I'm like, oh yeah, I am still sleeping. But it's good. It's good, man.
I'm his alarm clock from across the ocean. That's how things work here.
You are the transatlantic alarm clock. I love it. We can make money off that.
We can.
We could start our own business. Speaking of
this, Alex. Look at that. Now, Ave, excuse me, rum in my throat there. Ivy, you are a business specialist, and this is what you talk about businesses on your show, especially with women that have been successful in business, which I think is amazing. How did this all begin for you? This progression into talking about business.
It's an interesting and it's always a great question. I was recently asked, and it frightened me when I had to realize the answer. I was recently asked, they're like, well, when did you know you were going to do X, Y, and Z? You know, like, when did you know you were going to be a business leader? When did you know you were going to own your own business? When did you know this, that, and the other thing? And I'm going to tell you, I thought about it and it got really frightening. 30 years ago, I was in my 20s and I was like, you know what? I am going to be the master of my own destiny. I don't know what it's going to look like. The first two businesses I tried to start probably between 25 and 27 for financial reasons, couldn't get off the ground. I had a leased apartment and a leased car and maybe $100 in the bank. And, nobody, couldn't come up with the capital. And then I just, I kept going. And it was just this concept, when I talk about mindset and beliefs, it was nobody told me I couldn't. So I believed I could.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing about being young. And I just, put one foot in front of the other. I got involved in the printing industry in my later 20s, probably around 28 or so, hired to start selling printing. And I was like, okay, I could do this. And I looked around and I'm like, there's no other women selling printing. Wait. There's no other women in management here. Like the women in the industry were, bookkeepers, receptionists, and production assistants, never to be made to production people, never to be made senior, and here I was like, I'm just going to sell printing. I'm going to make a lot of money and I'll see where I go with that. And I just, because I said I was going to do it and I believed I could do it, I eventually figured out how to do it. I'm not going to say it was easy at first. Mm-hmm. And, one thing led to another, and I became a junior partner. And then I spearheaded a merger of that company into a $3.5 million company solely so I could have a second kid. They're like, well, what do you want to do this? This is crazy. You have a child. I was like, exactly. The bigger we go, the more kids I could have. So let's do this. Let's go bigger. Because the bigger you go, the more support you hire. Right, Tom?
Yeah. That's what I got with Alex. I was like, I got money now. I can afford a British dude. This is awesome.
Never
it's
afford me.
interesting-
Sorry, sunshine.
I totally could. I totally could. What do you mean? I make
I'm
all the money.
classy.
Night shift pays a 15% differential, Alex. I can afford it all now. I'm rich.
Really?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, totally. It makes it all worthwhile, the sleepless mornings. So when you say like that most of the women in business at this point were like receptionists and bookkeepers, it's interesting to hear that because when I think of the 80s, I think of like, women being empowered in pantsuits. That's more of like a thought that of like Mad Men-esque 1960s women. It's very interesting to hear that was still the case.
It was wild. And like, when you reference Mad Men, here's an honest to God true story, because it's one of those stories I would never forget. Okay. I'm trying to I was determined I was going to sell to ad agencies. I was going to be uber successful. I was going to sell to ad agencies. I was going to be that woman out there. And, I kept calling like the BBDOs and the Ogilvy and Mathers back in the day and the gray advertising, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So I finally get an appointment with this smaller agency, head of, production, blah, 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 blah. And I put it under Slater. Yeah. And the secretary walks out into the reception area and they're like, Mr. Slater. And I stand up and they're like, we're waiting for Mr. Slater. And I'm like, no, I'm Ms. Slater, Ivy. I stands for Ivy. And she's like, one moment, please. And she goes back and she comes back 5 minutes later. And it's like, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith got called into a meeting. You'll have to reschedule. No, Tom, I'm telling you, this was the world. And I'm like, okay, don't worry. And this was the time way, way before, everything was on our phone. I pull out my file of facts and I'm like, I have my calendar with me. Can you please let me know his next availability? And they're like, you'll need to call, which meant there's no way. And I just, it was this time. You think this was, the late 80s now, early 90s. And you would think like, yeah. And guess what? I was in that suit and I didn't wear those 2-inch pumps. And I had, a navy suit and I have a brown suit and a gray suit and a black suit, and it rotated through the pants and the skirt and, the blouse and the sweat. I had all, that's how we dressed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to do this one way or another. I'm going to do this. But yeah, it's think about, what were the women's roles down in, there was very, very few. There were a select amount of women executives, but it was a clear minority.
When your company became a success, did you call her back up? Be like, you have an appointment for me now? Huh? Don't forget, Ivy, Wednesday, 5:00, me. I'll be the lady in the pantsuit. Fuck you.
The lady in the pantsuit. Lady in the pantsuit walking Madison Avenue.
I love that. There's I've just recently watched Wonder Woman 84, which is great, kind of great.
She's fabulous.
She is.
Yes.
There are some references in that way. It's kind of like, hey baby, and she's like, no thank you, and all the women are like that. It's like, hey baby, no thank you. Hey sweetheart, no thank you. And like it just seems to be like this misogynistic, like, let's lean into the woman, like, hey, can I get you another drink? It just seems to be that time of life where men just thought they ruled the world. It was just crazy.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
At least it was, I think, Alex, you're very right. It was the illusion that men ruled the world, but there was, what, I'm going to share when I went into business for myself. So I spearheaded, we had this merger for 4 years. And then one Monday morning, I opened the door, and this is 97. I now have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I opened the door, and half the office is cleaned out. 2 of the partners left over the weekend, no notice, no, my receptionist is crying, whatever. And then I went into business on my own. At that time, there's something I still keep in my night table right next to my bed because it means the world to me. My aunt got me this like glass sign that said, behind every great man is a great woman. Behind every great woman is herself.
Yeah.
And it was, and she was not a businesswoman. She was a homemaker her whole life, never really, worked a little bit here and there for some extra money kind of thing. But it was never really a businesswoman. But it was a different time. And like you look at leadership today, And it is such, yes, we have more ways to go, but we've accomplished so much and we do have to honor it.
I think I'm still spellbound by the fact that they're still coming up with issues today that they have never dealt with. Like, for example, last year, the Joey Diaz thing with a stand-up comedy where he was very inappropriate and he would get women to do sexual favors for him before he let them on stage, right? And that was 2020. There's still issues going on right now where equality is an issue. And a lot of the riots and things that happened in America and in the UK as well, worldwide, we're all about equality. And it seems to be an issue where you can't just say to people, just treat people fairly. Like, what's the issue? I don't understand. It's very hard to get such a simple idea through to people that just overcomplicate things. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I always think it goes back to, how do you change the world? You change it from our young. And,
Yes.
I look at my kids now who are adults and working for males and females, executive VPs and not them. They're a little lower on the little lower on the totem pole. But be that as it may, they don't blink an eye if they're working for a man versus a woman versus authority because they were raised in a home that both mom and dad ran businesses. It's like we were equal. There was no so part of it is the education around that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When it comes to being successful in business, because you mentioned that you already had 2 kids at the time when you started becoming successful, what's the best way to balance your family life and your business life? That's not the proper word use at all. But once again, you'll excuse me because I just barely woke up like 5 minutes ago. I can put words together right now, and that should be more than impressive to anyone. So, what's the best way to?
I'm impressed you showed up after a night shift. So
thank you, Ivy. I appreciate that. I hope you taking notes, Alex. Be impressed. What's the best way to balance your personal and your professional life?
It's a great question. And I have to tell you, I think the concept of work-life balance is ridiculous, because if I think about going to a playground, right? Balancing on a seesaw, when you're little kids and you try to, you hold and you hold that balance and you can hold it for a second or two and everybody's excited and then one goes this way or one goes that way. And that's the fun of it, right? It's the fun. It's a seesaw. It's supposed to be fun. So why are we trying to stay balanced perfectly for long periods of time? What if we throw that out the window for a minute, right? And we think about work-life priority, right? Mm-hmm. There's times, okay, it's a Saturday. I rarely work, let alone Fridays anymore. I rarely work on Saturdays. I stopped working full days Fridays when my kids were young. I've run Slater, my printing company for many, many years, for 20 some odd years, Slater Success for over a dozen years. I don't really believe in working ridiculous hours on Fridays. I'll work a few hours if I need to, right? So here I am showing up doing a show on Saturday. Why? Work-life priority, right? I can't be everything to everyone at all times. So pick my priorities at different moments. But the key there is to know my priorities.
I can pick
them if I know them. If I'm all confused about them, then I can't pick them logically.
Yeah, you got to do what you want to do, right? And I was going to add to that I like to think it's Laura at TVGuestpert. It's like, we've got this handsome British chap. He's got a show. Would you like to come on? When it comes to balancing things out, there's a danger, though, isn't there, of getting too enthusiastic. I mean, yesterday, for example, I run a different show called The Shrewsbury Biscuit in the UK. It's quite a successful show, and we're helping with something called the Darwin Festival in Shrewsbury, right? Working with the Shrewsbury School, universities, things like this. And we had this webinar yesterday where we were planning all these things. I was like, "Oh, I want to work with you, and I want to email you, and we can do this." And afterwards, I got through the webinar. Sat down, I typed away all these emails. Can we do this? Can we do that? And I set all these plans up. And I was like, I will message you on Saturday. We will get this. Come to today. And my little boy's like, can we just watch movies? And I was like, yeah, okay. And my laptop sat on the dining room table and I just don't want to touch it. No one anywhere near it, even though I put all these plans in place the day before. Is it a good idea to know your limit when it comes to planning things like this?
You have to pick and choose. And, now I'm going to sound very business coachy. Okay. So, and I'll own this. calendar out your time. So if you should, if your little one, if your 4-year-old, it's a Saturday and they want to sit and watch movies with dad, isn't that like the golden moments? Why would we miss some of those? Yeah. Why would we miss it? So pick and choose, prioritize that in the moment, and then maybe pick another hour to do all those connections. I have from two things that I had going on this week, this laundry list of LinkedIn connections, right, that I wanted to get going this week. And I was just like, well, okay, I had some stuff with my family yesterday and this, that, and the other thing. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to get, Monday we have a kind of sort of a holiday in the United States. I said, I'm going to just find an hour, might put something on, a show on in the background and just get that done during that time. But calendar it out as opposed to feeling you never have time for anything. Look and say, what is my priorities? Bottom line, my kids, my family comes first, always has. And I've built great businesses because I've always known that I've created that time first. And then I have that other list and I figure out my timing. I put it in and I honor those times. And there's times it might be a Saturday, it might be an evening and I'm not home for dinner in the pre-COVID world or in the post-COVID world, right? There will be that balance, but I'm in charge and I never feel that I'm sacrificing because I'm making my clear-headed decisions based on my priorities in that time.
I use it as an excuse, and I'm going to use that way just because, like, I like my job because I've gotten pretty successful at my job. I've gotten better jobs within my job, but I always use it as my excuse, and it happened to be a true one. It wasn't just, a reason not to go in for overtime. Like, overtime is pretty great. They offer you time and a half. It's a good amount of money, especially, in this economy. But I rarely do it unless it's a you have to do it type of thing, because these are the golden years. All my kids, my daughter's probably turned 10, my son's 6, my other son's 5. This is the time that everyone talks about, like raising a family and having your kids be at a young age. This is the time when they still want to spend time with you. Why would I give up those instances, those memories, just to go earn a few extra bucks? And luckily, my wife is a very successful woman as well. She manages a whole office. She's a really good girl. So she's afforded me that ability to turn down that money. But a lot of families, unfortunately, just can't do that. They got to say, well, I do want to spend time with you, but we got this bill to pay this month.
So find the golden moments. It might not be as often as it's important to us, but find the time. If you there's a lot of people out there working multiple jobs, and don't get me wrong, every Sunday night I open up my computer, I set up my week, I do emails, this is not a business that Slater's Success isn't a business that's been successful by happenstance, whatever that word is. It's successful because the work we put into it. I believe in building a team. I believe in building support. I help other companies look at their teams and, look at their analytical plans, their strategic plans, and how do you grow and scale and all of that. But start with you. What's really important to you, and understand those priorities, and then find the moments. Even if it's 15 minutes sitting down to color with your kid, those 15 minutes can be found, and that will be a cherished moment for both of you.
It always annoys me in these big blockbuster movies, I don't know, like Elf and Jingle All the Way, when the dad's getting shamed because he can't spend time with his family because he's out there earning the bread. But at the same time, it's kind of true, but you can't give your dad a load of shit because he can't be there all the time. Do you know what I mean? But like Christmas, I understand that, it's just
I used to
paradox.
think it is. And it's funny because I think it really rings true though. Those movies, like, as much as they're like, exaggerated, like my dad was a successful dude. He was an engineer. He was at work all the time. And I didn't even learn to appreciate the fact that he was sacrificing so much time to not be with us to make sure we had an amazing house. We always had clothes. We always had food. We always had anything we always wanted. He's a really good dude.
Oh, it's a good pull actually to the Simpsons thing. Do it for her. Do it.
Yes, which is actually on my. Are you familiar with the Simpsons, Ivy, by chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there's this amazing episode called Maggie Makes Three, and I know way too much about the Simpsons. And it's referring to Homer quits the nuclear power plant because he finally has he's level enough. Him and Marge are level enough in their family life, in their personal life, and how much money they make with the two kids that he can quit his job doing something he hates and do something he loves. He goes and works at the bowling alley. Well, Marge has a surprise third kid, and he has to go back to the nuclear power plant because it's the only place that will pay him enough in Springfield so he can afford to have a new kid. And the whole episode is predicated on the fact there's no pictures of Maggie in the house. They're like, where's the pictures of Maggie? And there's pictures of Bart and Lisa. And he's like, well, I have them in the place that I need the most, because at the end of that episode, Mr. Burns, to disparage Homer, puts a sign in front of him that says, don't forget, you're here forever. And it's supposed to really demoralize him and break him down, but he takes all these pictures and puts them on Maggie, and it ends up spelling out "do it for her," which is my favorite. I get chills right now saying, because it's my favorite thing, and it speaks really, really well to the American way of life, of being like, well, I don't want to do this, but I'm gonna do it for this person. I'm gonna do it for this reason. I'm gonna do it for that, because that's what's important.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. I love that. But I would love to talk to you about your Slater Success. So we talked about your printing company. Where did Slater Success come from, and what is it?
Slater Success is a coaching and consulting company. In the simplistic, so here's my intro. When I go to all these networking different things, and I was like, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a podcast host. I launched a LinkedIn Live show in the last 60 days. And in my day job, I'm a coach and a consultant helping companies scale and grow. Nice. It truly got birthed from a midlife crisis, to be very, very honest with you. It was 2007. It was April of 2007 is the month. It was the month of my birthday. My birthday is in April. And it was the anniversary of my dad passing away the April before. And for whatever reason, I always did what I did. When he passed, I took care of my kids. I helped my mom. I went back to work a week later. It's just like, do what's next. Take care of what needs to be taken care of. Take care of what needs to be taken care of. And the person I never took care of was me. And, so 365 days or so later, April comes around and I just fall apart. I was like, what am I doing? I reached the goal. I was owner of a printing company. I was very successful, this, that, and the other thing. I was like, what does it all mean? Who am I? When these kids, in a blink of an eye, they were going to be teenagers and before I knew it. And before I knew that, college, out of the house. And, when all is said and done, it's going to be Ivy. And who am I when I look in the mirror? I'm a printer. Like I was a dancer early on. I have a degree in dance. I have a degree in communications. I had all these, I wanted to be a dancer. And then what I wanted to sell to advertising agencies, because I felt I was going to be an amazing producer in life. I was going to do that. And all those things didn't kind of come about. So lo and behold, I was like, well, when I look in the mirror, like, who am I going to be? And I crashed, cried for, Noah's Ark. I cried for 30 days straight. I would drop my kids at school, stop at Starbucks on my way to the office, and they say, what can I get you, lady? And I would fall. I was like, a latte? Hysterical crying. I was like, oh my God, can I have a latte? And I was, a friend of mine, we were working out outside. We were up on the Upper East Side of New York City where we lived. We're in the park working out after work at like 5:00 and doing walking lunges and, and the little jog and, squats and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself? And she's like, you ought to become a coach. I said, you want me to coach soccer? Because this is 2007, the industry wasn't really well known. Yeah. And, lo and behold, she just started sharing, and I went home and I hit Google. What is coaching? Yeah. Of course, soccer and tennis came up first, but that's okay.
Yeah. So you're a New Yorker then?
I am.
Yeah. So am I. Hey, I mean, I don't live there any longer. I'm a Vermonter. I'm a Flatlander, though, surprisingly.
Wow.
But I'm from the lame part of New York. I'm from Poughkeepsie. Like I was born. Yeah. Totally. That's where I was born.
So, yeah, side note, I'm talking to you from my home upstate New York, about 45 minutes from Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, the lamest part of New York.
You have you walked over the bridge in Poughkeepsie over the Hudson River? It's gorgeous.
It is. It really is. In all awesome parts of history actually take place in that section of New York as it stands. I mean, really it's badass, but I tend to think about the negative parts about it because we lived in like this was before my dad was success and stuff. We were living in like a trailer and stuff. And then I think about like the amazing house that we ended up getting in like Burlington, Vermont. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a pretty crap place. But I actually need to go back down there because I need a birth certificate and New York just won't send me one. They're like, hey, get your lazy ass down here and come get your birth certificate. I'm like, all right, God.
You reminded me of how beautiful America is and how much I haven't been able to see it. Like COVID, by the way, I hate you so much. I really do. We were supposed to come to America last year, and we were going to come to Florida and do some traveling and see, and that's not happened. I miss the Secret Stash, man. I know they're going to reopen Kevin Smith's The Secret Stash comic book store in New Jersey. They're going to reopen it as something fresh and new. But I wanted to see the original, Yeah. And now I'm not going to be able to because it's closed.
I'm ready to travel again.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm ready to travel again.
I've got a trip to Zante booked for later on this year. I don't think I'm going to Zante. I really don't.
Where's Zante?
Thank you.
That's Greece.
Yeah.
It's one of the Greek isles.
Oh, okay. Why don't you say Greece then? Why do you make me feel dumb by saying?
Okay.
Like I'm going to Zante. I know geography, Tom.
This is a transatlantic thing, right? Because over here, you say I'm going to Corfu or I'm going to Zante or I'm going to Kos because everybody just knows that's Greece. Whereas obviously you guys, you're a bit further away. It's not as local. That's a weird thing to say, but yeah. So if I said I was going to go to Benidorm, do you know where Benidorm is?
No.
Yeah, that's in France. That's in France. It's in Spain.
I'm not very worldly, Alex. I know where Philadelphia is. I know where New York is. I know where Florida is. I know where Louisiana is. I know these places. I just like once you get into different countries, I tend to like lose my bearings a tiny bit.
Whenever I go to different places, I always say, "Where's the holiday destination?" So like I always say, "Where is the Canaries or the Ibiza?" For such and such a place, because the Canaries for us, like Tenerife, Lanzarote, Fuerteventura, they're kind of like the holiday destination. Whereas like when we went to Colombia, my wife, she said that it was Cartagena was their version of the Canaries. That's where everybody goes to go on holiday. I was like, oh, okay, it's just interesting. That's all.
It's like Alex said he's going to Florida, and you and I might say, oh, you're going to Miami or Fort Lauderdale or Orlando.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get
it. Speaking of COVID. It's had a real terrible effect on a lot of businesses. You being a business coach, has this impacted your workload as a business coach?
You know what? I've been really fortunate. It has not impacted my work very much. It has impacted some clients that have impacted us. It's opened opportunities for other clients. Leaders are struggling. There's been a lot put on their plate. It's actually was the impetus for me to get started on my third book, which I swore I was not writing another book this year. And hence I started because I think it's just so important to look at leadership. The leaders who have been around the block in other, maybe not global pandemics, but other crisis situations where you've led through other challenging times in life, whether it be 9/11, whether it be a recession, whether it be a business divorce, which is very significant, a death in somebody's family that could really impact a business, losing your biggest client. And, when I spoke to people who've navigated the challenging times before, they didn't have the COVID answers. And it wasn't that they weren't any less stressed over the situation, but they showed up with a troubleshooting attitude versus, oh my goodness, like, what are we going to do? And that fearful attitude, there was a lot of people showing up with a lot of fear versus showing up with the attitude and leadership. okay, how do I troubleshoot this? What do we need to do? I work with a bunch of law firms. Some were already in the cloud, some were not. The ones not in the cloud really had a lot to do those first several months to make sure their people had what they needed. The ones that were in the cloud already and their businesses, everything was stored and it was less paper already, were really like that step ahead. So it was looking at clients and making sure that they had the preparedness to start running good remote teams. I think, here in the States, everybody went remote somewhere between March 13th and March 17th, it seemed. Like from like a 5-day window, it was like, poof, we're all now remote workers. But everybody went there, but that doesn't mean you know how to lead that way. It doesn't mean, one of my clients, I was like, okay, how are you keeping people motivated? And they're like, well, I'm sending out videos regularly. I'm like, okay, let's look at this differently. How do we foster inner motivation versus just stuff motivation on people? What if, every person in the company, every person has a rotation that they have to come up with something that they find motivational to share, at every meeting. And I don't care if it's from the receptionist to the janitor to the partners, and it could be, quotes, it could be articles, it could be videos, it could be a TED Talk, it could be anything that you find inspiring. And it shifts from these people finding, when we go to look for it, we get inspired. Then when we share it and we share why we find it inspiring, other people look, and it builds motivation without stuffing motivation on people.
Did you, speaking of business in COVID, and because you're a business coach, did you see an uptick in people starting businesses or a downslide in people starting businesses during this pandemic?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. That answers everything.
So I had to turn that background off behind me. It was doing my head into it. It was flickering around. There you go. I'm sorry.
There's been both. There's an enormous amount of entrepreneurial spirit. There's an enormous amount of people who see a problem when a problem is presented and they say, hey, I know how to fix that. Maybe I could start a business. There were people who started businesses because they got furloughed. And so there were those two situations, as well as some businesses who did not make it, and some businesses who have been really, like the restaurant industry has just struggled. The theater industry in New York City, there's industries that are really being hit hard.
Yeah, I'm from Shrewsbury in the UK, birthplace of Charles Darwin. There we go. There's innovation for you. And I always say there's something in the Severn, which is our local river, runs right through Shrewsbury, so I'm on the loop. And the innovation show by some of the restaurants, some of the businesses, just blew my mind. Obviously, I consider apparently I'm the voice of Shrewsbury. Okay, I got this podcast where people come talk to me, and for example, there's a bar called the Seven Social. They were told they had to close their doors as a restaurant. They couldn't do anything. So they're like, okay, we'll turn ourselves into a drive-through then. And they did. They turned themselves into a drive-through where they had no contact with customers. Here you go, mate. Off you go. Contactless payment. Go. And it worked. The vegan hub, they were like, okay, we'll just sell our stuff online. A food delivery company, Zoom, 1 hour. They were like, okay, we'll just start delivering shopping, booze, cigarettes, food, whatever you need. If you need a prescription picking up from we'll do that for you. There's just seems to be these amazing people that just like you said, Ivy, that aren't just going to roll over and die. They're going to be like, okay, we'll do something different then. And that's just beautiful to see.
It's exciting. It's beautiful. Those are the people that I love talking to, sit down over, a cup of coffee or a cocktail or whatever it may be, and have these great conversations, because there's people who are like, hey, here's a problem. I could fix it. Let's go. And they don't think about all the mechanics involved in making that fix happen. They just do. And there's never all the, we can sit and try to figure out all the answers and all the answers and all the answers. And I'll always say, get started, do something, and then do what's next. Way too many people come to me and say, yeah, I'm going to open business. I'm starting to work on the website. Once I get the website up, I'm going to be doing this. I'm like, how about you sell 5 clients? Close 5 clients, create sales. Then you'll have the money to pay for somebody else to do the website. And guess what? You're in business, and we can go to the next step.
When it comes to this situation, this has been a really hard hitting for some people.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like pride, pride can really drive people into doing silly things, right? What would you suggest to someone that is extremely stubborn and will not accept a defeat in the smallest terms, and will not adapt in that way?
My heart breaks for people like that. There's a lot of time pride and ego get in our way.
Yeah.
If you're truly, I'll always say, identify what's important to you. Like I referenced it before in priorities, but identify what's important to you. And is my pride or my ego is more important than that? And I stop and say, look at it. Which is more important in this moment? Is it my kid? Is it my relationship, my spouse, my partner? Is it a dear friend? Which is more important? Yeah, we all have pride. We all have ego. It's life. But then think about which is more important in this moment. Is it about me or is it about making a difference?
Where does that lie with collaboration then? Because there's a lot of businesses out there that are in the same boat that may sell the same thing or do similar things.
Yeah.
I've spoken to someone that is one of the most successful ice cream merchants in Shropshire and further, and he was saying he came up with a delivery procedure that was completely contact free. Leave the tray out, let them pick up the ice cream, go back, pick up the tray. No one's going to get COVID, right? So instead of keeping this to himself, he told all the other ice cream merchants and ice cream men around the area because he wanted the trade to do well. And when it comes to collaboration with business, is that dangerous or is that good?
I think it's the best thing that ever happened.
Yes, I agree.
Me personally, I was on a call yesterday for about 45 minutes with a leadership coach consultant who has been in the industry as long, if not longer than me, had a business before me. Like I had a business before that was uber more successful than mine. And she's like, hey, can I tap your brain? I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And, and we bandy about ideas. I would rather my dear friends be my greatest competition. And then when we can all in the back door brainstorm and succeed, there is enough abundance in this world for all of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're willing to see it. And when you help others, some of my clients are other coaches and consultants. And there's nothing that makes me happier is their success. There is enough room for all of us. Lord knows, I have to tell you, I could eat ice cream for 3 meals a day. It's my favorite food. It trumps everything in their brother. If all the ice cream shop would do it, I would go to all of them. Why are we limit ourselves mindset wise and why don't we see the possibility and the abundance of it all? The more we are, even back in the day in my printing world, once a quarter, a bunch of us, I was the only woman, but a bunch of us other printers would sit down at a Starbucks on 8th Avenue and 40th Street at this, upstairs area and just shoot the breeze together. Hey, what's going on? What do you see in your clients? What do you see in your clients? And, hey, Ivy, why aren't you doing more in the makeup area? We do a ton in the makeup area. I was like, yeah, you guys work a lot of nights. And they're like, yeah. I was like, I'm home with my kids. I'm not doing that. I was like, who's home with your kids when you're on press all night? They're like, well, our wives. I'm like, funny thing, I'm that wife.
That's me.
I know it might not realize it, but hello, I'm like the wife and mom. Like, I don't want to be yet. But we used to sit down and once a quarter and everybody have coffee and sit down and talk about the industry. We need our colleagues. We need to brainstorm with one another. And now more than ever, COVID has brought this out. The more we gather together and look at ideas and possibilities and opportunities from various people's perspectives, the more knowledgeable, the more innovative we could be in the long run.
If you happen to like ice cream, this is a shameless plug for my sister's company she works for. You might like Millie's Homemade Ice Cream, which is out of Pittsburgh. It's a very upscale, very nice ice cream that my lovely sister happens to be the flavor designer for. So you just want to check that
Millie's homemade ice cream. Don't mind me while I make a note.
Yeah, totally. And plus, when it comes to handing out good ideas to your friends and your loved ones and stuff, it's not a bad idea either, because it also helps you think outside the box. You're like, okay, well, I just barely said this and I gave them this tip. Now, how am I going to progress past that? What am I going to do next that's going to make it even better? How is it going to help me along my way? What can I do to change up things to make it a little better? And that inspires innovation. So there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Just don't be Steve Jobs and be like, we'll lock it in a box and you can leave it the fuck alone.
Oh, Steve Jobs. Remember him?
But I mean, like, everyone's got a book idea, right? Everybody's got an idea for a book, and you should never tell other people your book idea, because someone will steal it, right? But when it comes to...
Yet I went on air before and I told everybody my book idea, and it's not finished yet. It's not copywritten yet. I just gave out my idea.
Yeah.
And I do it without, but if I didn't give it out, hey, people might have great ideas for people for me to interview. So it's that conundrum. Why not?
Yeah.
Except my book idea is worth millions. I know it is. I'm like,
but I see another J.K. Rowling right here.
Oh my God.
Well, they say that, sort of 60% of books fail on their first attempt. So I didn't want to write that one first and fail, because I know it's brilliant. Anyway, moving on.
I say the same thing about business.
That is true. And I'm sure there's lots of people that have made businesses failed, made another business failed, and then how long do you persevere with that then?
So I'm not a person. So there's various ways to look at it. Okay, if a business is consistently losing money, to keep throwing good money after bad, I question. Okay. Now, if I'm bringing it, if I reach out and I get some other points of view, is it something internal that's not working? Is it the product that's not working? Is it the service? Is it the sales? Is it the marketing? So if I do the strategy and analytics piece to see what is working, what is not, and I see like, I see I approached this wrong. This can happen, right? Based on this, I would keep going. But I'm not that same thing about ego and pride. I'm not going to be so damn stubborn that my ego and pride is going to continue to throw good money after bad on a business that is not going to succeed. Okay, but I'm going to seek outside counsel and see, is there something I could be doing that is smarter than what I'm doing in certain ways? Is there something I missed? Is there a disconnect somewhere, or is there not a marketplace for it? If it's not a marketplace for this, and hence there's no sales, to keep going is pointless.
Yeah, I mean we're part of the podcast world, which is probably one of the worst industries to be involved with when it comes to people trying to make money. I had a message today like, would you like me to promoting your podcastings and make you top rated podcaster on planet? And I was just like, why do these people try? I don't understand. Like, because...
You want to be Joe Rogan? And you're like, yeah, I do actually. What do you? Yeah. How do I become Joe Rogan? Well, it's a labor of love. This is like the thing that I've tried to explain to people, because it always, without fail, every time I describe what I do on my weekends, I describe, what's the difference and what I do on Wednesdays and how much I enjoy it and the time that gets put into it. Not nearly the time that Alex puts into it, but it's still a dedication that I have to put into it, where I take myself out of my family life. I sit in my office. I do this, and people are like, oh, well, how much money you make? And I'm like, none. I'm like, I don't do it for money. I do it because this is how I express myself creatively. This is how I branch out and talk to amazingly interesting people like yourself, Ivy. And I don't care about making money at this point. Once again, going back to, I don't care about making money during overtime. I'd rather spend time with my family. I don't care about making money. I want to do this because this is what makes me feel good.
It goes back to prioritizing and what's important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a type of meditation, believe it or not. So like it is. It's a type of journalistic I can't remember the name of it. Kat Merrick. I wish you were here with me now. So your yoga master, I usually speak to. When it comes to like this podcasting thing, it's so funny. I saw this amazing conversation on one of the podcasting groups a while ago, and some guy was going, "Yo, dudes, you need to do this and you need to do that to make good money on your podcast." And I was like, and everybody was kind of like, he was like ribbing people and giving people grief about stuff, and so I am the big I am. And somebody was like, "How much have you made?" He was like, dude, I've made $42 this week. $42 in a week. I was like, okay, feed your kids on that. Like, yeah, it's interesting. I do like to be around innovative people though. And your website, but I've got to say, is just a beautiful place to go if you need that inspiration, including your podcast, which I was listening to earlier, by the way.
Thank you.
Where did this just happen, or did the coach go and get a coach to help you get this together?
Okay, so you asked a really great question earlier about pride, and I brought in ego. And when I started this company in January of 2008, okay, I was going to be out of my printing company by January of 2010. So it was like a 2-year, right, to give myself to get this up and going. And during those 2 years, sales were crap, were absolute crap. In a very fancy word, they sucked. Yeah. And I struggled and I couldn't get out of my own way. And I had this point of view that said, I've built a successful business. I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't until things got really hard and financially really hard, and I had to really figure out how to make a living, that I went out and I invested big, and I got help. And I hired myself a coach, and they're like, you're going to have to hire an assistant. I was like, I could barely have money to hire you. She's like, yeah, but are you going to do you want to sell and get clients, or do you want to do all this back end work? Because if you're actually really looking to build this business, so I talk about investing. I invested in a coach. I invested in a VA. I'm in the New York area. She was down in Georgia. And the first 60 days, I didn't send her anything. And she shows up in my inbox. And she goes, we need to schedule a call. So I get on the phone with her and she's like, you need to send me work. I said, I have to tell you something. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to send you work. I was used to running a company. And if I needed somebody to do something, I said, here's this file. This is what I need you to do. Here's this. I need you to do that. I said, you're in a different state. I don't know about this. I'm trying to figure out this marketing. She goes, well, let's start a newsletter. I said, I don't write. She goes, I'm going to teach you we can do this. And I did. I got help. I threw the pride away. I threw the ego away. I threw what I thought I knew in the garbage, and I looked at what I wanted to achieve, and that became more important to me. And so all of the ego crap got thrown out the door, and I got the help, and I started marketing. I started selling. I started seeing what I can do. I started talking to people. I did an enormous amount of market research. I saw which niche markets we were really good in and why, and started growing this business to a successful company over, a dozen some odd years. And the podcast came in. I started building the podcast in the fall of 2017 to launch January of 2018. And I said, this is going to be great relationship building. Yes. I'm a strong believer, businesses are built on building great relationships. These conversations are going to give me great abilities to build relationships. And from that, business will be built. I didn't have the formula exactly how, what, or when, but I just knew this had a great opportunity to build relationship, get people's stories out of their journey of success, not their success, but what's the journey been like to achieve success? It's not all roses every day.
No, it's not. No. I mean, we started this USUK idea in April. We thought this is going to be amazing. We got vetted by, there's lots of people that are like, this is an amazing idea that you're going to do so well. And then the pandemic hit, which affected podcasting across the globe. Even Joe Rogan saw a slump in downloads. And it never really recovered from the beginning until sort of now it's kind of starting to take off. But it's been a hard slog, isn't it, this year, Tom?
Yeah. Well, I think it really speaks to the fact that we were true to ourselves. We had a podcast and it was pretty successful. We were having, a lot of downloads, and that's, of course, all in perspective, right? Like there's a lot of downloads to us. And there's a lot of downloads to a person like Joe Rogan or Kevin Smith. But to us, to a couple indie podcasters, we were doing fairly well, and we took a chance because we didn't want to limit ourselves to the kind of little box, the littlest box that we built. It was a pop culture, geeky,
Very not safe for work. Very
not safe for work, which a lot of people dug, which was fine and everything. But Alex's other podcast, the Shrewsbury Biscuit, one of them, he was talking to some of the most interesting people out there, and they would not fit into this little box that we made for ourselves. And we had a real, come to Jesus moment where we're like, okay, we want to speak to whoever we want to speak to. How can we change what we're doing so we can, incorporate this into our lives? And we took the chance. We started a whole thing, and it was all predicated on the fact that me and Alex love talking to each other, but a lot of the times things get lost in translation. Alex will say something, I'm like, what do you mean by that? And I'll say something, and he'd be like, what do you, what?
Zanti.
What is it?
I'm going to Zanti.
Zanti, the place in Georgia, where everybody wants to vacation. And that's where it all kind of started from, was this little thing of a couple buddies just not getting each other and things getting lost in translation. And it like Alex said, it wasn't successful in the beginning. It was unfortunately just happened to be the very beginnings of COVID, not the time to start a podcast. And it naturally, over time, people just really dug what we've done, and they enjoy the fact that we get confused very easily by one another. And this is just where we are now.
It's beautiful. It's really swallowing that pride. You're like, oh, okay, here's this great thing we did. We're gonna have to change things up a bit, please. How's the podcast been for you? Do you find that quite a nice process then, finding out about other people's lives?
Yeah, you know what? I happen to really like talking to people. I like learning about people's journey. I'm definitely for a true introvert, for all the years growing up, I'm a true people person. I might not like big crowds, but I'm truly love to have real great heart-to-heart conversations, open conversations. So the podcast has been an amazing asset for that. And it's, on a business side, it's been a great business building tool because it's introduced me. My last question, once we hit the very end of the recording, I'll say, so who else do you think I should be talking to? They're like, oh my God, I have people. Oh, you've got to meet. And it doesn't mean they all become clients, but they're exposed to our mission. They're exposed to our values. They're exposed, and they will, things develop from there. Things grow from there. So the podcast has been great for Slater success. It's been an avenue to meet others, connect with others, build relationships. And I'm a firm believer relationships are the golden ticket to success. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. And similarly, we've made some great relationships over the last couple of years. For example, okay, I'm going to shout out to Jerry Rocher and Eddie Pence, very successful comedians. Eddie's got a huge following. And when we first had Eddie Pence on the show, we were like, excuse me, please, Mr. Pence, we are very huge fans of yours. And would you mind please coming on our podcast? We were really laying it on thick. So please come on our show. And he's like, yes, okay. We were really happy. I dropped him a message last week. I'm doing a Podstars thing live on Facebook. Do you want to come on? You and Jerry. He was like, yeah, that's fine. And I nearly cried. I was like, we've got this nice relationship with these people that not long ago we were kind of falling over ourselves because we got them on the show. And that's just a beautiful thing. You make these beautiful friendships from around the world and you learn from one another. And that's the beauty of it all, right? Yeah.
That truly is what it is.
Yeah. What are your sort of plans if the pandemic disappears tomorrow and the world opens again? The world's your oyster, Ivy. You can go anywhere you want. You can do whatever you like. What's your plans?
Well, I'd like to rebook that girls' trip to Morocco that I was leaving on March 13th last year. Just saying.
I've been to Morocco. It's beautiful. Marrakesh.
Oh, nice. Good for you, Alex. We're glad that you're such a world traveler. Some of us are just so fortunate.
I can't even go to Wales at the moment. I can't even go to Ril. Never mind Marrakesh.
And the good news is that we knew Marrakesh was in Morocco, Tom. We're ahead of ourselves now. One of the things I do love is being at this stage of my life, and the amount of travel I could do that incorporates my business, and speaking live in front of audiences. Speaking virtually has been great. We're continuing to make an impact, but to be able to be live and actually speak to people and have those conversations after we speak that goes, hey, I want to ask you further about this. And that means the world to me because I love connecting with people. And as we continue to move out of COVID, so more speaking, I've been running. COVID pushed me to do more roundtables again around leadership. And, so that has been great. But continuing to business build and continue to build a business that is a national and global business that we touch and we, in our small little way, continue to make an impact and change the world for a better place, one company, one person at a time.
Traveling's like the great equalizer, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're a Fortune 500 CEO or if you're a vagabond. It's the thing that everyone, at least for the most part, likes to do. And it's one of the things that we all have experiences in, whether you're traveling to the next state or you're traveling to Marrakesh or to Greece, Alex, like some of us get to do. You privileged fuck. It's really like the great equalizer because everybody loves to do it. Everybody gets a chance to do it at least one form or another. Where if you could go anywhere besides Marrakesh, because obviously you got to miss out on that vacation, where would you want to go?
So I keep a list on my phone of a bucket list of places that that I don't want to go. I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Build it and they will come. Build it and they will.
Yes, exactly. Mindset piece. Put it out there. These are the places, some of the places that I'm looking forward to going to is South Africa. I was in Kenya many, many years ago. I'd like to get to South Africa and kind of do a trip to South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. That's been on my go-to list. I had a trip planned a couple of years ago out to Napa in California and do the wine country, and they had the fires and didn't make it there. So that's still on that list. Haven't done New Zealand and Australia yet.
I'd like to do New Zealand, yeah.
Greece, by the way, I haven't been to Greece. My husband's never been to Greece. I haven't been to Greece since my 20s, which was just kind of yesterday, but a long, long time ago. There's so many. I love to travel. I love the various cultures. I love talking to the people, the history. There's just so much upside to it that I have friends in various places that I miss, and I look forward to seeing them again. Simple as that.
Have you ever been out to Louisiana?
No, actually.
Which I know is not South Africa by any stretch. You're mentioning all these amazing places. Some of the greatest.
Yeah, but have you ever been down south?
I want to get to Nashville. I want to do a 4-day weekend in Nashville.
Yes.
With friends of mine from Charlotte, we were and now there's something we were talking about doing. It's like, hey, this is a great place to meet for the weekend and do some music and do some food and, throw that on the long weekend agenda.
And do you know what? Like, people might listen to this and think, oh, what are they talking about vacations and holidays for? I am a firm believer that going on vacation and taking a holiday with a family or whether it's a relaxing thing is an investment. It definitely helps you recharge your batteries. The last 2 days when you're on like a 2-week holiday or something like that, and you're swimming in the pool and you're kind of like back to it on Monday. You just remember those last 2 days. I don't know what it is with me. I always just remember those last 2 days where you're thinking, it's so hot right now. It's freezing back home. It's just like those batteries get to recharge. It's important.
You know what? I have to tell you this. A bunch of years ago, my husband and I were on vacation. We were on that beach, and he's snoozing away. And I'm kind of sort of reading a book, looking out at the water, not doing anything. And he wakes up and he looks at me. It's like, I know that face. What's up? And I was like, I was just thinking about my business. And I was thinking, now that our kids are at this stage, I was thinking about doing this. And I had this whole new business idea. And, when we're doing everything and our busy days and our busy lives, we don't get that chance to stop a little bit, embrace the innovation, embrace the creativity. I truly think we need vacations. We need these long little breaks, these short little breaks to stop, to open our minds, open our hearts, allow the creativity and innovation to come in.
Beautifully put. And at the moment, we can't really do that. And there's an outcry at the moment in the UK because the beauty spots, like your mountain ranges and your hilltop walks, things like that, have just been inundated with traffic. Cars parked up for miles. People can't park near these spots, and it's just a nightmare, right? But people can't go on holiday. They can't go anywhere. Like I said, you can't go to Wales. That's not an exaggeration. The border's closed, and Wales has got some of the most beautiful scenery in Europe. And you can't just go there and enjoy yourself. And people yearn for that. We're trapped in our lounges. and we can go walk around locally, and that's about it. Like, it's just a nightmare. And where'd you get that inspiration from?
Yeah. I think this is a good time to like start those lists and do that research and look forward. Don't wait. Don't wait. And it's like, I don't know when I'll be able to do this, so why bother? It's like, why not? Why not see and envision and get some research done and see what places are of interest and why you would want to go there. And it gets our minds expanding.
There's an old nutshell, which is strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that wants to take a chance on a new business or a new opportunity, but they might not be comfortable in stepping outside their norm to do so?
We don't really grow if we're not in our comfort zones don't give us a place to grow. We grow best when we're in an uncomfortable zone. And it's a conundrum. It's a true conundrum. Very often, like people say, like, well, my spouse can help me with this. I was like, absolutely, they can. But our spouses are supposed to have the people in our lives that keep us safe and cared for. The greatest growth for business comes from an uncomfortable place. It comes from a place of, risk, doing things we haven't done before, playing outside the box, thinking differently. So I truly think it's in the places of discomfort that is our greatest growth. And we can't allow ourselves to play safe. Play safe, we don't grow. We don't grow, not just our businesses, we don't grow as people. And that's not giving yourself a full share of a full life. I always say, build your business to fit a fabulous life that you want. So start by visioning and looking at a fabulous life, and then build that business, build that career that helps you fulfill that. Don't try to build a career or a business and then stuff your life into the pockets. It's exhausting.
That makes sense.
Go big, vision big, and then build it to support it.
Yeah, the house is going to cost so much. That's an Audi. That's 80 grand. We need this. We need that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really does. Yeah. And as well, that resonated really hard with me because I'm a huge critic of myself. I look at myself and I think, what did you do that for, Whiteley? Why did you do? Like, you're just a word. Honestly, if I do a bad performance on anything, I will hate myself for days. Last night we did a live show and I didn't even want to look at it. I didn't want to speak to my guests afterwards. I was just like, this is the worst ever. I got to a show. We had technical issues. I was trying to run the tech. I didn't know how to do half the stuff. It was just a nightmare. And I feel like I was dying from the beginning, right? And like you said, those uncomfortable areas are where we learn. The next time I'm going to put in a bit more prep and sort of like do a dry run of this like before I go live, because I don't want to look like a dick like that again live, because it's just the worst feeling. It really is. It just made me feel terrible. So you are right. Those uncomfortable moments we learn from. Beautiful. I love it. Yeah. Before we get, I know we're running short on time. Would you like to tell people where they can find your websites, where they can listen to your podcast, etc.?
Check out slatersuccess.com. There's a bunch of resources there. There's a video that's 7 traits of great leaderships that feel free to download. There's a complimentary chapter of my past book, From the Bar to the Boardroom, Choreographing Business Success Through Authentic Relationships, as well as episodes of Her Success Story. Nice.
Tom, you got anything to add?
No, I was thinking of a pun for see you Slater alligator, but I wasted it right now, which you can have, Ivy. You can have that. It's sharing ideas as we were talking about earlier is how we can grow. So I'm just
good brainstorm.
Yeah.
Before we get out of there, I do want to say thank you to the guys at Guestpert. Laura, who I speak to on the emails, by the way, she's the planner. She organizes all the shows and she makes sure everything's confirmed. You are amazing, absolutely amazing, and also,
thank you.
No, she's amazing, honestly. Because and Ivy yourself for doing this short notice. Because, like we said at the beginning, I can't say to Eric like, yeah. And your dad's died. Jump on a party. We would never do that, And so, like, we had to reschedule, and you were gracious enough to accept. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, and a huge shout out to Laura and TVGuestpert, who just continues to show up in all of our worlds and all of our inboxes as an amazing resource.
She does. She chats to me when at 3:00 in the morning when I'm at work. I'm like, all right, Laura, you know, she's because we don't speak to each other for like weeks apart, and I'm kind of like, oh, we've done this, and I've got this, and I'm just like this enthusiastic little bunny, and she must be like, whoa, where have you come from, you know? So, thank you so much, Laura,
and thank you, Ivy, because I gotta say, like we get offered a lot of guests, and sometimes they are. Now, it's not to say we've enjoyed every conversation we've ever had because we always take something away from it, but you, ma'am, are just. I learned a lot from you. I had a great time speaking with you. This was just one of those great surprise experiences that I did not expect to have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both guys. And it's been a joy. It's been a fun conversation. And that's the best. It's just been a fun conversation to hang out on a Saturday afternoon and chat. So
we're not businessmen as such. I mean, I do have my own company. Hasn't really made a pound yet, but it's new, and we're not businessmen, but if you have the guests to come and talk, we can definitely talk, right, Tom?
Yeah. We can bullshit with the best of them.
Yeah. Right, Ivy. What we tend to do now is we let our guests go, and then for the next sort of half an hour, we enter the later lounge where we sort of drop the lights a bit and we talk about our weeks and get a little bit more R-rated. But thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Ivy Slater, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Hats off to you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you. Okay, guys, we're going to end this show now. If you want to join us on the Lighty Lounge, make sure you click the next video on YouTube because we're going to drop the lights and get a little bit steamy, right? Right? Yeah, we're going to get a bit naughty.
Yeah, steamy, like we're in an old car inside the Titanic and there's hands rubbing on the windows. Steamy.
Lighty Lounge, be there. We'll catch you in a sec. Peace out.